Michael from New Mind. Hey there, everybody. Everybody hear me okay? Yeah. All right. Thank you for coming and spending your afternoon with us. I know it's just after lunch, and the temptation is going to be take a little cat nap. We're going to try and move quickly for you guys and keep things interesting. The most interesting part of this is going to be your questions. So please make note of them, and we're going to answer them at the end of each section. I'm going to give you a little overview. My brother Michael is going to come up and talk to you about email and calendar. And then I'm going to come back up and talk to you about mobile devices and the collaboration tools. And my apologies that there's so much that the product can do. We'll probably gloss over most things. So that makes your questions even more important. All right, so I'm going to get started here with some slides, just to give you kind of a brief overview of what the product is and what it does, just to kind of set a level. So just to get an idea of where everybody's at in the room, just a show of hands, how many people have used Google's consumer products maybe in your personal life? Gmail, okay, got a little bit of echo. So that's over half the room, and that's really not uncommon. And that's one of the things that makes this solution pretty easy to adopt for educational institutions, for businesses, and for government. Here are the different pieces and parts of the Google Suite. You have Gmail for email, of course. You have Google Talk, which is Google's enterprise class instant messaging and VC solution. You've also may have heard of Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts is a little bit newer product and is kind of getting integrated into Talk. So Google moves very quickly and introduces new products, and sometimes names can be confusing. So Talk and Hangouts, roughly the same thing. Google Groups is a product that allows, we're not going to be able to get very deep into Google Groups, we just won't have time today, but it's a product that allows users to work in teams and to answer messages, streams of messages collaboratively. So think getting a message as a team, and then different people choose who's going to answer that particular message, or like a group email list, say. Calendar obviously is exactly what it says. Google Docs is a suite of tools that allow you to collaborate on documents, spreadsheets, presentations, things of that nature in real time. So that's multiple editors all editing the document at the same time. And it's actually visible. You can watch people editing the document at the same time. It's pretty cool. We'll look at that a little bit later. Google Sites is a part of the suite that is actually used quite a bit in education and in instruction. It's a simple way to create websites without any kind of coding knowledge at all. And a lot of times in education it's used maybe to organize a project or to do portfolios. There's a bunch of different applications there. And finally, more of interest probably to your IT staff than to you guys, but good for you to know about it, is the Postini suite. This is another piece of the puzzle that has recently undergone a name change. So if you hear about Google Vault and Postini are roughly the same thing. It's the security and compliance suite. So things like the rules around spam handling, the rules around data retention and things of that nature to administrate that and keep you guys compliant. All right. A lot of this is housekeeping, but this is important information for you guys to know and to consider. Google Apps itself is free for education. Google releases it for free to any education institution. There's a lot of kind of different thoughts and ideas and things you can hear out there about how Google handles its products with regard to privacy and advertising and stuff like that. So we want to make it clear that this product, Google Apps for Education, versus the consumer product that you may be used to, does not contain advertising. It doesn't scrape your data or gather your data in any way. It's a completely different product. It has a completely different legal terms of service than the consumer products, and all of that stuff is treated very differently in this product than it is in the consumer products. As far as just kind of the specifications of the product, you've got 7 gigabits of email, or gigabytes rather, of email per user, which is quite a lot, and Google continues to increase that quota. Your attachment size, your max attachment size is 10 gigabytes. I neglected to mention, it's kind of odd, why would that be larger than the whole size of the inbox? And the reason it's larger is because there's actually another edition of Google Apps that goes up to 25 gigabytes, and so the attachment size is the same throughout all the editions. There's a 30-day trash retention restore, so as an individual user, if you delete something and it goes into your trash, it stays there for 30 days, and you can retrieve it yourself without any help. There's, in addition, the compliance tools have a deeper retention that's available to your administration that can retain messages and data for up to 10 years. So you have multiple ways to get that stuff back. Kind of an important housekeeping note is that this edition of Google's tools is hosted at your school's domain name. So Ferris@edu would continue to be your email address. You're not getting a Gmail address. You're not getting anything at Gmail or at Google or anything like that. It's all still at Ferris.edu, which you already have for your students. A 24/7 administrator support, obviously, and plenty of ways to integrate the system with other systems that you use. The Postini services are, and now called Google Vault, are a separate service from the production email environment, and they're deeply discounted for education, and these are all the services that deal with, again, that discovery and retention and compliance and security management. So why do people consider, why are so many, I guess, education institutions using Google versus the traditional tools? The main reason is because Google is very, very good at managing data centers. They have a huge data center network. It's a kind of a little known fact. They're the 4th largest server manufacturer in the world, and they only manufacture servers for their own use, for their own data centers. So that gives you kind of an understanding of the scale at which they have resources to offer up to educational institutions, government units, and businesses. Their security practices are world-class and are audited by third parties via these certifications. SASE 16 is an industry standard certification for that auditing. So what all this translates into for you guys as a benefit is greater uptime and better reliability and higher security than you could achieve on your own with your own servers or with traditional methods. This is not a new thing. This is not a new product that very few people are using. Many, many, many educational institutions are using this. There's a large number of institutions in Michigan. This is just a smattering of institutions that I could grab some logos for. So I've just got a couple more minutes left before Michael comes up and really goes into and shows you, demonstrates the products for you. And I just want to spend that time talking about why sort of a new style of products are needed. Why would you, what Michael's going to show you is some products that don't work exactly like you may be used to. Don't work just like Lotus Notes, or don't work just like Microsoft Outlook or these traditional products. And so I just want to kind of take us back to maybe where we've come along the path of these products evolving. So the first thing to kind of highlight is collaboration is on the rise. The way we work, we used to work very individually. It used to be really a single user productivity kind of work paradigm where I need to get better at working by myself. There were sort of individual craftsmen that would individually craft things and sell them to people. And society has moved into a very collaborative work paradigm. And that's had many benefits. What this slide demonstrates is there's a number of studies that have shown a very strong correlation between collaboration and innovation. So innovation is a buzzword that you hear a lot, and really what it just means is good ideas and positive change. And what people are learning through that research is the more people can collaborate, the more good ideas and positive change will result. And being in a university setting, you guys probably see this all the time. You collaborate with your colleagues, or you collaborate with staff members. You encourage students to collaborate with each other because the good ideas kind of rise to the top. You take some from the people you work with, they take some from you, and really good things happen. So we want to use tools that encourage that, right? So just that evolution of where things have come from. How many people remember when computers were a big bunch of boxes that occupied one room, and maybe 3 or 4 people in the organization had access to that one room? Anybody remember that? Anybody ever spend their time in those rooms? Have a big stack of punch cards that you fed into a computer, and that was how you programmed it? So that wasn't too long ago, right? I mean, really, in the grand scheme of life, that was a very short time ago that was happening. And so it's important to acknowledge that things have changed really fast. So that's what, basically this first graphic, that's what the first graphic is kind of talking about, is a bureaucratic IT. It's technology that not very many people understand, only a couple people have access to. Back then, the question of what is a computer, what does it even do, was a common question. So we moved from that to an individual user empowerment. We all got computers on our desks. And what I'm gonna kind of put forth to you is probably most of the tools that you're using today were built and designed and created for this paradigm. They're meant to make you individually, better. They're meant to make it easier for you to be productive individually. Meant to help you manually organize your stuff. So think about in your email. Your email's coming in, you're responding to it, you're moving it off into folders. The computer's not doing as much for you as you would like it to do. You've got to do a lot of stuff for yourself. It's, in some instances, you might say it's generating a lot of work for you. So that's a pretty manual paradigm, pretty single user paradigm. So where we are today, and why I think and why Google thinks that some of those tools are no longer interesting or no longer useful or less useful than they used to be, is because today we're really empowering teams and we're empowering collaboration. That's what we were talking about before, is collaboration drives that positive change. And so, how many of you guys have a mobile device with you today? A tablet, a phone, that change in paradigm is only a couple years old, right? I mean, that's even shorter in history. And I would say that change is driving a lot of this collaboration and a lot of this team empowerment. So these tools that Michael's going to come up and demonstrate for you, and I'm going to continue to demonstrate, are built for this collaborative environment. And this collaborative environment, because of the amount of data, requires more things to be done automatically for you. Less manual single user work, more automatic collaborative teamwork. So come on up, Michael, and take us through email and calendar. And Michael's a little bit more exciting of a speaker, so hopefully he will give you something to hold on to stay awake in this post-lunch session. After lunch is tough, guys, but I hope you can hang with us, all right? Thank you. Drop that, and...
Well, I might be exciting, but that's probably because I'm really nervous. So bear with me, I've got a camera on me, I've got my boss watching me, I've got you guys, I've got Grand Rapids. Be gentle, please. So what I want to get into is take it back to the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and sign out of my account here. And what we're going to be doing is looking at email and calendar. And later we'll get into some of the other features of the product. How How many of you have an email inbox right now that sometimes prompts you to delete items? You're running out of space, or you need to somehow do something about how much email storage you have left, and you don't know what to do because you have all these emails. Maybe you'll need them in the future, maybe you won't. There's definitely some that you will need and you can't get rid of those. So how do you make decisions about that space? And that really goes back to kind of what email used to be. You know, when you first had your first email inbox, how many of you received more than 10 emails a week? Okay, how many of you received more than 100 emails a week with your first email? Right. And how many of you receive hundreds of emails every day now? It's just astronomically going up, right? But the tools are still very similar to what they used to be. And there's a lot of time now that you spend just sorting your emails, just getting through them. It's hard to even take action on those emails. Just to get through them takes up a lot of your time. So what some of these new tools do is help you organize them, help you get through them, and help you make sense of which are important emails and which aren't worth your time. So let me just start right out. I'm going to go ahead and go to my login page, and that's going to be apps.mycompany's domain, newmindgroup.com. For you guys, that would probably be apps.ferris.edu, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and log in with my username and password. Now, the important thing to remember here is this is the university's computer. These are mobile devices. These tools work in a browser, so it doesn't matter if you're in Mozilla or Chrome or Internet Explorer or on your computer or your friend's iPhone or an internet cafe in an airport. The tools are in the browser, so you can access them from anywhere in the world, anytime, as long as you have an internet connection. Whoops. Oh, did I misspell my name? Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. My boss is already fixing me. All right, here we are. So for a lot of us, we work out of our email. This is a primary location that we spend a lot of our time in. So when I log in, it takes me right to my inbox. This is my work email, and this is where I spend a lot of my time. And you'll notice up here, there's this navigation bar. Has all these different things, like there's my mail, there's Drive. We'll talk a little bit about that in the collaboration setting. We'll talk a little bit about this, calendar, sites, groups, contacts, more. This has a lot of other functionalities, other systems that integrate with Google Apps that our company uses. And I want to start talking about some of these differences. So in your current email environment, you want to be able to find things. Once you've looked at them and it's something worth saving, you need to sort it in some way, right? So whether that's attaching folders to it so you can find that again in the future when you need it. So you'll put it in a folder. And that's good. That's the place you should find it. But what about, have you ever used search functionality in Lotus Notes to look for emails? Okay, good. And is that useful? I mean, it can be useful, right? But the problem with searching in that is you're using the computing abilities of your specific computer to search through your specific email. And you'll see this great big search area right here in Gmail, and that search functionality uses all this computing ability that all those servers that Google has hooked up together allows you to return really, really fast search results. So in the past, I would need to go start digging through folders over here to find emails that I wanted to find, or or conduct a search that could take a minute or 2 minutes. But with this search ability, I can do all kinds of searches in a matter of seconds. So I want to find all the emails that I've gotten or received or sent to Daniel, my boss. And there they are right there. But that's still too many. That's not enough to tell me what I need. So I want to make sure that it's stuff related to Ferris State University. Oh, there we go. So seconds later, I have those emails in front of me. I can access them. I can look at them. There's greater functionality in the search. You can search in specific places. You can search specific from addresses or to addresses, subjects. It has attachment or it doesn't have an attachment. It was sent in a specific date range. So you can use all these things that we as humans know in regards to our emails to be able to find them again when you need them, instead of having to remember, oh, what folder did I put that in again, and what folder is that underneath, and what subfolder of that subfolder is that in again, to try and find them. The next difference I would like to highlight is folders versus labels. In Gmail or in email, you'll see this labels right here, and these are basically folders. They're a way of tagging emails so that you can find them again. And you can see I've added colors to mine that they have attached to them. You can see there's a label I've created. There's a label I've created. There's a label I've created. But the benefit of a label over a folder is, in a folder, that's a physical location. So when you save an email in a folder, it's putting that email in that folder. And what if that email really needs 2 folder names attached to it, or 3 or 4 or 5? Then you have to copy that message and put it into all those different folder locations. And so you really end up with 5 different copies of that email. Well, a label is basically changing that and saying, this is really just one email, and what we want to do is be able to tag it with this information to tell us what it regards, and it has multiple. So you can see here, this email right here has a Chromebooks label and a follow-up label attached to it. And you can sort and search by your labels. So I want to highlight that difference as well. Moving on, we talked a little bit about your quota, how much email you have to delete just to make sure people don't get bounced messages from you. And because my boss has given me this great tool to use, I don't really delete emails anymore because I have more storage than I could ever need, really. In our version of Google Apps, the business version, there's 25 gigs per user. As Daniel highlighted in the free education version, it's 7.4. But you can see I've worked for the company now for about 10 months without deleting email, really, and I've only used about 2% of my available data, and that's not deleting. So you can see there's a lot of benefit to having all this extra storage. You just don't need to worry about it anymore. And at the end of the day, when you're ready to be done with an email, you can just, instead of deleting it right here, you can just go over here and archive it. And that email is still searchable. It's still in those folders that or labels it was attached to. You can still find it really easily with these search capabilities. And you have it when you need it. You don't need to worry about making those decisions. Well, this is gone forever if I delete it. All right. So you'll notice here are all these emails in my inbox, and you see these numbers attached to different ones, 5 and 2 and 2 and 2. And what this is Google invented conversation view. And if you've used Gmail, you're familiar with this probably. And it's basically saying, there's a lot of emails that go back and forth that are really about the same thing, and it's an ongoing conversation. And why would we want to look at all those emails separately? Why wouldn't we want to put them together? Because they're a conversation and they relate to each other. So that's really what conversation view is all about. So you can see here, this is the beginning of a conversation right here, first email, and then there's a reply to it. And then there's a reply to that reply, and a reply, and it keeps going. And you can see things in context. And that's something that I really prefer. Now, I'll show you, if you want to, you can certainly turn this feature off and look at each email separately in your inbox. It certainly changes how many emails you have to look at in your inbox, because instead of the number 5 next to that email, I would just have 5 emails. So those are sort of the big 4 in the paradigm shift, moving from several emails a week to hundreds of emails a week, and how Google was built for this new world and the future world, really, is that ability to search, not just sort, but search fast and not need to worry about all those things that where did you put that email? You can just search for it. The labels versus folders, that difference, the archive versus delete. You don't need to delete anymore. And conversation. So now we're going to move on to some of these other features. You can see right here, got this chat capability right here. I'm going to try and chat with Dan really quick. And we can just carry on a conversation right here. This is built into the product. You can do this with people in your organization, depending on how your leadership is structured. Your ability, you can do this with people who have a Gmail version of the product. Are you guys still awake? All right. Yep, they're still awake, Dan. All right. And certainly there's lots of other things you can do in this feature. You can do a group chat. I could call him. I can video chat him. I could even send him an SMS message from chat. So lots of functionality built into this. If you're one of those people who you want to get into your email and you want to do things and you don't want people chatting you want to focus. Too many people are trying to chat you, then certainly you can come in here just as you would in other instant messaging systems and make yourself invisible or tell people you're busy. Make sure that they know you need to be left alone right now and that you're not available. So let's move on. A couple of the other things here that I want to highlight. So there's tasks, obviously, that you can use, and you might be using that in your Novell system. But just I use tasks to help organize the things I need to do throughout my days. But we're going to keep moving and go on to contacts here. So here's my contacts. And in a larger organization settings, we have the directory. My organization is not as big as yours. So our directory wouldn't be nearly the size as your directory would be. But the important thing to realize is your directory will have the contact information of the people within Ferris. And you'll be able to search for anybody you're looking for that's in the directory. And again, we have this nice big search functionality. So I remember I met this person. Their name was Sarah. Sarah Brylowski. Okay, there's Sarah Brylowski. And I'm immediately able to find her contact information. I want Sarah, this one. You can see you can associate pictures with them. You can organize them the same as you would in a label type environment with different triggers that tell you, oh, this is my friend. She also works for NewMind. Yep, this is this person. Phone numbers. You can link their Google Plus profile information, LinkedIn information, make notes. All these different types of things that you want to keep track of with your contacts. Now, let's say that Sarah and me know each other, but I want Dan to know Sarah too, and I want to share that information so I can go ahead and export her info, and I can email that to Dan and he can have it as well. And especially that is useful if it's a contact that's not within your organization. You can't find it through through the directory, through this search functionality. Okay. So with that, I want to move back and kind of go over kind of the settings for the Gmail part of the product, the emailing. So you can come here to settings, this gear right here, click this down. We can open up our email settings, and really this is what you'd want from being able to make settings. There's not really anything really different about this. It's just a matter of setting it up the way you want to see your email. So you can see things like when I reply to an email, do I normally want to reply to everyone in that email thread or just one person? So a reply all, default a reply. This is where I can turn on that conversation view. So for example, if I turn that conversation view off, go down here to click save settings, you can see my inbox count just jumped up. And we'll go down here to that email we were looking at before. And you can see that, oh, where'd it go? Did I archive that? Well, you can see, okay, so here's a perfect example. So these two are clearly related to the same thing. And in the conversation view, they would be grouped together. But here you can see them as two separate emails. And it's organized in chronological order as they enter my inbox. But I really like that conversation view, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on. All right. Here's some useful functionality as well. If you want to make sure that you're asked when a new sender is trying to show you pictures or something like that to avoid viruses on your computer, you can set it to manually ask you to approve new senders to show you external content. Can obviously make your personalized signature. Set your vacation responders. You're going out of the office for a while, so you know what date you're going to be leaving. You know what date you're going to be returning. You have your subject and the email that you want auto-sent while you're gone. Go ahead and turn that on, and when this end date arrives, it automatically turns off for you, or you can manually turn it off. It's up to you. And there's greater functionality built into these things, but I want to keep moving. Excuse me, I better get a drink of water. And obviously there's greater functionality over some of these other things like inbox. You want to view your inbox in a different way. You want to have different sections in your inbox. So for me, I've got 3 sections: important and unread, starred, and everything else. And you can see how that's separated here. Here's my important and unread. Here's everything else, and I don't have anything starred right now. Or otherwise that would appear right here. But really you can create this view any way you want that makes sure it works for you. All right, so let's say Dan was a little bit more overbearing than he really is, and he wants me to respond instantaneously to messages when he sends me a message, and I need to be on the ball. Well, that's really easy to do here because I can set up what's called a filter. And that'll just auto send Dan an email every time he emails me to tell him that I'm on it. I've got his email. He doesn't need to worry. So I'm going to go ahead and create a filter with this search. And with these filters, you can do a number of things. You can, if it's a group email that you don't really need, you can automatically archive it so it doesn't even appear in your inbox, but you can still find it if you need it in the future. You can automatically apply labels. So if I wanted to make a label that told me that this was from my boss and I need to pay attention, I could do that, or automatically forward emails based on criteria. But what I want to do is send an automatically pre-written response to Dan saying, Dan, I got your email and I'm working on it. Don't worry. So I'm going to go ahead and select one of these pre-canned responses. I've pre-written these things and I just need to make sure that they're sent. All right, so that's done. From now on, whenever Dan sends me a message, right away he'll get a message from me saying, I got it, I'm good, thanks. Let's see here. Some really cool functionality can be found. We go back into settings here. Click on labs. These are really cool kind of niche functionality that some users like, some users don't like. They don't really use them. And you can find them here in this lab setting. You can do a number of different things. For example, canned responses. So I answer a lot of emails with the same words. Why would I want to rewrite those same words every time? I can enable this feature called canned responses, write out that response, save it, and then whenever I want to use it, just send that. And I'll show you how that works. Or if you want to do these other types of things, like you want to be able to see a Google map right in an email and not have to click a link to see it in a new tab, or be able to insert images right into email that you send to people, or be able to see Picasa pictures right in the email. Do special things with your signature to make it look oh so nice. Excuse me. All right. So let's move on and talk a little bit about how do we send to a lot of people at one time. And that is this really cool thing up here called groups. And in Gmail, if I want to send an email to everybody in my organization at the same time, I don't need to write out all their different email addresses in the to send column. What I need to do is come in here, and this group is already set up, and I can just send to one address. So that address is going to send an email to everybody in my organization, and I don't need to remember 13 different email addresses or thousands if that's the case. All right, great. Easy. And you can create your own groups. Your leadership can create groups for you that you can use. There's a lot of functionality built into that. But for the sake of time, we're going to keep moving. All right, so please save your questions for email. I know I went really fast, but we're going to move on now to calendar so that we can leave time at the end for questions about email and calendar together. So I'm going to start accessing my calendar. Go up here to the button, click it open, and here you see my calendar. And you can see, oh look, I'm at Ferris State University today. Great. But I want to make sure that I'm an admin assistant and I do a lot of scheduling with Dan. And so Dan, I want to be able to see Dan's calendar alongside mine. So you can see all these different calendars available to me that have been shared with me. And there's Dan. I want to open him up. So, there he looks like Christmas. I can see Dan's calendar as it lines up with mine and be able to tell, yep, this is a time we could meet together, or this is a time we could meet together. Be able to see them in parallel. And there's any number of calendars you can add to this view. It can get very colorful, as you can see, depending on how many calendars and people you work with. And if I want to add a calendar, so this is someone that I don't currently have access to their calendar, but I want to be able to see it, whether they're in my organization or not in my organization. For example, my wife, she has a Gmail account. As long as your leadership has enabled the functionality to share with people outside your organization, that's possible, and you can view different calendars at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and send my wife an invite to be able to see her calendar alongside mine. And she'll get an email from that, what I just sent, saying, hey, is it okay for us to share your calendar with Michael Jeffries? And she'll of course say yes, because I'm her husband. All right. So now let's see how to create an event. It's not rocket science. It's just like you would expect a calendaring system to work. There's a couple of different ways you can create an event. So you can go to an empty place in your calendar or a place that already has something, click it, and there's your opportunity to create an event. You can create the what, or you can immediately go into the edit event, see all these different things that you can do to create that event. So we can title it, Meeting with Dan, and So I'm not sure if this time is going to work, but we'll just move on from there. And we're going to, I need to invite Dan, because obviously he needs to be a part of this meeting as well. So I want to invite him as a guest. And you can see the autocomplete is starting already. And we're not going to be in the same location for this meeting. We're going to need to use a resource. So in our case, it would be a GoToMeeting account that we could use, and we don't want that scheduled on top of somebody else's use of it. So I'm going to go ahead and see if this GoToMeeting account is available in resources. And you can see that it immediately populated the where field. You can overwrite that if you want. And you can see that that's been added to the guests column. Now I want to make sure that we're all available at this time, so I can click here on suggested times, and it shows me when on this January 9th date all the participants can attend, when we're all free. Or you can come over here to find a time, and you can view it that way. So you can see these different availabilities, and you can see that in day view or week view, and be able to find a time when all these participants are available. Obviously, there's if this is a repeating event, there's abilities to set up repeating calendar items, and that can be repeated indefinitely or after a number of occurrences or after a specific date. Really exactly what you'd want from a calendaring system. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get this scheduled, and that looks like a good time. And I want to send an invitation to Dan because I want him to see that I'm inviting him to this. I don't want it to just appear on his calendar. So if I send him an invitation, he'll get an email in his inbox saying, Michael has invited you to this event, and you're free. Do you want to accept this event or decline this event, or maybe you can come? And he'll have those options in responding to me. All right, so that's all set. You can see it right there on the calendar. If we go back into that, you can see that I'm yes for going, but I could change that status. I could come back in here, make other modifications to it. You can see that the resource room has automatically accepted the event because it's free, and it's set up to automatically accept if it's free. Daniel has not said yes or no yet. If it did, if he said yes, I'd see a check mark there. If he'd said no, it would have a big X. And obviously there's other modification that you'd want, such as setting reminders for yourself, whether that's an email or a pop-up on your screen. Capabilities in privacy. Let's say that this event doesn't really need to be seen by other people viewing my calendar. They don't need to know the details. They just need to know that I'm free or busy. So that's this right here in privacy. If you set public, then anybody who has access to view your calendar can see these details, whether it's the where or the title or the description. But if you mark private, what they'll see is just busy on my calendar during that time. All right, let's see, where are we at here? Another really cool feature, one more thing. So we can create the calendar items from right here, marking on, trying to click in the calendar itself, or you can come over to this giant create button and create it that way. There's obviously different views of your calendar, so however you want to view your calendar, whether it's a day or a week or a month, those types of things. Let's see here. So you're a professor and you want to hold office hours. You want to make sure that people come to your office hours if they need to. I was the guy in college that went to the office hours. Well, one of the office hours. The calculus teacher saw me in her office hours every week, the entire year. And thank goodness she passed me. But so that being said, what would be ideal is for her to be able to schedule a block of time where I can make appointments in her schedule. And you can do that. It's really cool. You just come over here, select a group of time in your calendar, and look at this, appointment slots. Let's go ahead and edit this event. So we're going to give this a title of office hours. And if I want to, I can invite guests to this so that they're an ongoing part of this calendar item. But really, it's just me. I'm a professor, and I want to have students come if they need to. And I want to give each student 15 minutes of time as a standard. So, and you see this URL right here. So this is the opportunity for the students to schedule. So when you create this calendar, you'll want to share this URL with your students. So Dan is my student in this case, so Daniel. Go ahead and email that over to him. When he clicks that link, it'll take him to this calendar, and he can take some time to schedule in my office hours when he wants to meet with me. And these can be set on auto recreate, just like the calendar items. The same times every week for an entire semester, it automatically stops after a certain date, just like you would a recurring calendar item. If you don't want to share the URL, you can certainly embed this calendar into a Google site or to any site that's on the web and allow people to access that way. Let's see here. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you really quick is some more of those labs for calendar specifically. So if you go over here, and obviously you can do things for your calendars that allow you to customize it for yourself. So whether that's how you want to view it in your default view, if you prefer month in your default, or whether you want weather shown next to your calendar items, what you want your default meeting length to be, these types of things that you can tweak your calendar for your specific use cases. But what I want to show you is this labs feature. Again, these niche abilities to make your workflow better that maybe other people don't find useful. So this one can be very useful. If you're a person that's constantly getting scheduled and a lot of people are trying to vie for your time, you could enable this lab that automatically declines events that you are already booked for, and you don't need to worry about accepting or declining. It just does it for you because you're already busy. Or if you want to be able to attach things to your calendar items, it's a document that you will be using during this meeting, and you want to have it there in your calendar item when you start the meeting, you can just attach it. This one is really cool. Sometimes you have so many people in a meeting that there's conflicts arising in scheduling. Well, this smart rescheduler will allow you to reschedule based on everybody's schedule and be able to see that when's the next time we're all available and get that scheduled more easily. There's a lot of more functionality here that we don't have time to get into, but we'll be able to address them through questions, or if you want to get into a Gmail account, there's some functionality that's not here, but there's a lot of the same functionality. If you have a Gmail account, you can already be exploring this. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Daniel for some Q&A, and hopefully we'll keep going here and not bore you guys too much.
All right. Thanks, Michael. So we moved fast, huh? We probably glossed over quite a bit of stuff that is important to individual folks in the audience. And it's important that we get to that stuff, which is why we've left a good amount of time for questions during each session. Hopefully you've gotten kind of a broad overview, and you were at like 60% probably of people that had already used Gmail, so you probably have some pretty good familiarity with the system already. So let's open it up. Who has questions?
Let's do something different.
Oh, okay, great.
Afternoon session.
Let's do it.
We're gonna. Is this working? Hello.
There we go.
Do something different. We'll start down in Grand Rapids this afternoon.
I love it.
Give them an opportunity to go first, and then we'll come back up here, and then we'll do any online questions that we may have. So go ahead, Krista.
Can you please share with us how Google Apps would function on a Mac platform?
Yeah, absolutely can share that. If you were in the room with us here today, you'd see that both Michael and I brought Macs, so that's a topic that's important to us. Google Apps, the primary way to use Google Apps is built on a web browser. So what that means is any device that can access the web via a web browser, be it Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, whatever it may be, Safari, if that's your browser of choice, can access these tools. Everything that Michael has shown you has all happened in a web browser. It doesn't require any special software to be installed, any special Mac or Windows or anything that's specific to the operating system. So everything that you've just seen works great in a browser on a Mac. That's what I use every day. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Great.
In the second half of the session, we're going to show some mobile devices as well.
Yep,
So
we're going
you'll
to show
see
some
those.
mobile devices, and actually the system works great if you're someone that really likes desktop apps as well. So if you have a particular desktop app that you like to read your email in, as long as it's standards compliant with the IMAP email standard, you can connect it to your Google Apps account and read your email in there. That's no problem.
Okay, next question, Krista.
When you're using the appointment slots feature, will students that I'm sending this link to be able to set appointments on my calendar?
Yeah, appointment slots is, some people like it and some people don't like to sort of open things up that broadly. But yeah, the point of appointment slots is to be able to block out a block of time in your schedule and then offer that time up to a group of people to schedule you without all the hassle of, hi, are you available? Yes, I'm available. Will you accept this event? Yes. All the yes and no and all that stuff, you're just basically saying, here's a group of slots that I'm available and you can schedule me. So whoever you send that link to will have the ability to schedule you, but only during that time that you've allotted for those appointment slots. Does that make sense?
Great, thank you. We have one more.
Sure.
Actually, I have several questions, so just keep going until Kristen makes me stop.
Exciting.
But as far as it being a browser-based software, which browsers does it work in, and is there a preferred browser?
Well, yeah, I mean, it varies from user to user. I will say that there's quite a bit of functionality in Google Chrome that makes life quite a bit easier. So if I were to recommend one, I would recommend that one. If you have a very, very old computer with a very, very old browser, it can get old enough that certain things won't work, like IE5, IE, even as old as IE6. They're just older technologies that newer web technologies don't work in those old browsers. But by and large, it works in whatever browser you would like. Some of the nice things that Chrome brings is Chrome will do things like, if there's an email link, you're surfing a website, say, and there's an email link, you can configure Chrome to automatically open up Google Gmail to send an email to that email link rather than what your operating system would do, which is generally grab that email to link and try and open up whatever its default email client is. I've had that headache for quite some time. So Chrome adds some really nice polish to it, but the reality is any browser will do, any modern standards compliant browser.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
With regard to email, you had said that the trash gets deleted after 30 days. Is there a way to make that stay until you delete it intentionally?
There's not a way for users to do that. However, just because it's been deleted for you as a user doesn't mean that your archive or your compliance software that your administration has access to doesn't still have a copy of it. So in cases where, there are things that were lost that are really critical past 30 days, what you're going to do is you're going to have to contact your IT administration and they can retrieve it from the archive. So it's not lost, never to be returned. It's just you don't have control as a user to retain it longer than 30 days. Now, that's only stuff that's in your trash. So all the stuff that you don't choose to delete, you've got for as long as you want.
Okay, thank you. Questions on the calendars. How does it handle repeating events, especially events that are sort of irregular? It might be Tuesday morning and Wednesday afternoon for 3
yeah,
weeks or something like that.
I personally have quite a few events that are like that, and it handles them really easily. If we were to go in here and I'm just gonna clear this out and just display Michael's calendar so it's readable. And we create an event here. We go to repeating. So we've got a whole lot of different options. We've got weekly. There's a couple of quick, every weekday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, and Thursday. There's a couple of shortcuts, but if you use weekly, you could say during the week, I want it to repeat on Wednesday and Thursday. And you can see down here in the bottom, there's a nice summary that tells you what all these check boxes and everything you've checked actually means in plain English. And that can be pretty helpful. I find myself looking down there just to double check. Weekly on Wednesday and Thursday. Yep, that's what I meant. And then I click done. Does that make sense?
What happens if it's at a different time on Wednesday and Thursday?
It all depends on the degree of variability. If the time is offset, then what I would do is create 2 different series of events. I would create a Tuesday series at one time and a Wednesday series at a second time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Is it,
Yep, go ahead.
is there a way to set an alarm or a reminder, an event reminder?
Yes, there is. So any event can have a reminder associated with it. And there's 2 different types. There's a pop-up reminder, which means a little pop-up is going to pop up on your computer and tell you. Or there's an email reminder, which means the system's going to email you a reminder within a certain period of time, whether that's 15 minutes, hours, days, whatever. And you can also, in your settings, your own calendar settings, you can set a default reminder profile so that, let's say, I want every event that I create to automatically have a 15-minute email reminder. You can set those defaults in your settings so that all of the events you create automatically have a certain type of reminder set up.
Cool, thank you. One more question. Is it possible to search for a meeting room by equipment? For example, if I need a room with a projector and 14 seats in it.
That's a very good question. I think probably the way that we see that handled most often in organizations is that the way the convention for naming the meeting room has a convention that has that type of thing in the name. So most organizations, I don't know how you guys name your meeting rooms, but most organizations will have the name of the meeting room dash the capacity of the meeting room. They'll have a convention that has some of that rich data in the name. As of right now, I don't believe that the default functionality in Google Apps has a metadata search for any metadata that is attached to a meeting room.
Great, thank you. We have 2 more questions, actually.
Sure.
Thank you. I'm a professor at Kendall, and one of the concerns here is issue of student confidentiality and making sure that our correspondence via email corresponds with FERPA regulations. That's the Federal Education Reporting and Privacy Act. Can you talk a little bit more about security that you have and ensuring confidentiality of communication?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll preface it by saying I'm definitely not a lawyer. I don't nearly get paid enough to be a lawyer. So with the specifics of these different regulations, I can't speak to the nitty-gritty of it, but I am familiar with what you're talking about. From a security standpoint, there's a lot of rich information that we can share that allows your organization to do your due diligence. And that's really important that you do that. Google, as an organization, takes security, of course, extremely seriously. They have to. Their business will completely fail if they don't take that seriously. There's a couple, probably, in talking about security, without going really in depth and putting some of these folks to sleep, the important things to know really are that Google's infrastructure is custom and hardened by them. So there's not like outside third-party infrastructure at play. They build their infrastructure custom, and they employ, obviously, some of the best security experts in the world. From the accountability standpoint, they have achieved all of the industry certifications that are third-party certifications for their security practices. The ones I'll point you to are SASE 16, which used to be SAS 70 Type 2. That's a certification whereby a third party inspects on a regular basis someone's data center, their practices, and verifies that it meets certain specifications. They've also been certified FISMA moderate, which means that the federal government, that they are secure enough for federal government agencies that are regulated under FISMA moderate. So there's a whole lot more we can go into, but their security is top notch. It's almost cost prohibitive for most organizations of this size to achieve similar security profiles. There's just a lot that goes into what they do. Hopefully that answered the question. I'm a nerd, so I want to go a lot deeper for you, but I unfortunately just don't have enough time.
Okay, thanks. Could you demonstrate how to look at multiple calendars without showing them side by side? How you look at someone else's calendar without showing it next to yours?
Sure. So right now I'm looking at Michael's calendar, and I have his calendar turned on. So in order to look at my calendar without looking at his, is I'm assuming what you want to do, I would turn off his, go down,
Yes.
and turn on mine. So now I'm looking at mine only and not his, and I could go back up and look at his only and not mine. Is that what your request was?
Yes, thanks.
Yep, no problem. It's
Great.
just like
That's all we
on
have
and off
here.
switches.
Thank you very much.
Email group that you may have created. Yeah, that's really easy. So if you're in email and you're in contacts, we use Sarah again as an example. So I'm interested in information about Sarah, so I search for her, and I open her up, and right up here at the top, it shows which group she's a part of. She's a part of my contacts, she's a part of friends, and she's a part of the New Mind group. And it could be 10 or 20, they just all start stacking up right here. Does that make sense?
Yes, and then if I should need to remove her from a group, can I do it from that previous screen where it showed all three groups?
The easiest way to modify groups is to modify them in the contacts interface here. So if I go in here to my different circles, let's say she's a part of friends right now. So if I go in here and I find Sarah, I can choose Sarah, and I can choose, let me see. Not something I often do, actually. Yeah, so I can remove her from my contacts here. I'm not sure why this circle is acting differently. But yes, you can remove them. I apologize. It's really strange. Well, you've given me something to look into after this session, and I'll come up to you and give you the answer. But yeah, it's not difficult to remove people from a group. Generally, the way you want to do it is you want to go over to the group in your list of groups here. I'm working out of Michael's inbox too, which has got me a little bit turned around. But you'd want to go over here, pick the group, and then select the person and remove them.
Okay. Next question, up front, Jennifer. We'll work front to back then. Get as many as we can in.
Also a manager of a departmental email account, how that, I'm sorry.
Forgot it.
How can you manage a departmental inbox at the same time you're managing your own?
Sure. So it depends on how you set up your departments. Some organizations will set up a departmental group, and a departmental group doesn't really have its own inbox. What it has is it's a distribution list. But if you have an actual separate inbox for your department, you can delegate that inbox to people that manage it. So we didn't have enough time to show inbox delegation, but I can show you what they look like once they're set up. If I click on Michael's name here, you can see that he has his own box, but he also has delegated to him Nick's box, Matt's box, and Jared's box. So once that delegation was set up, you would see your own name, and then below it, you would see your department's box. And you'd be able to click that, it would open up a second tab, and you could see your box and your department's box and manipulate either one.
When you reply to email from the department inbox, does it then become yours, or is it still the department's?
Anything you do from inside the department is going to stay in the identity of the department. The only way you would take that over is if you CC'd your own inbox and then started replying as yourself. There are, I like to keep things simple, but there are ways to set up individual boxes to send as other people. If you're delegating and sending as and all that stuff, it can get pretty complicated. So I like to keep it simple and just keep things delegated, and I know, depending on whatever inbox I'm in, that's who I'm sending as.
Next question. All right, over there.
If I'm going to be implementing another vendor's software,
You have to push the button on the microphone and hold it down when you're speaking, and that'll go over the speaker.
thank you. If I'm going to be implementing another vendor's software in the integration lab or in the simulation lab, what it's going to be doing is going to be working to keep the students and the faculty on the same page as far as simulation goes. One of the things we talked about is that it has the option of emailing the students using our home-based email, our Ferris EDU email, such as giving updates, reminders.
Yep.
Will that be able to work? It's EMS's Orion.
It's going to be hard for me to comment on specific systems and how they integrate, but I can say broadly that we very often will take systems, as long as they're standards compliant, meaning they follow either the IMAP or POP standard, and connect them to the system and allow them to send. The other thing that this is not unique to Google, but when you do that, you want to think about the security settings and making sure that your DNS records and different things are allowing that as a sender, so that it doesn't get miscategorized as spam, because it's not a real user, it's a system sending through the system. But that's more of a technical thing that I'm sure your IT department would be able to help you work out.
Next question. Go ahead.
When you talked about the students being able to put in a meeting time, are they the only ones that would be able to delete that if they decided not to come to that meeting time, or as well as the person's calendar, but no other student or no other faculty could go in there and delete it?
Yep. Once it's booked, it's just like any other event. So once it's booked, it's an event that is between you as the instructor or professor and the student, and either one of you could say, well, I said yes to this event, but now I'm going to say no because I had something come up, or what have you. Respond to it just like any other event.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
You showed canned responses in the email, and I use a lot of things that I just keep in draft as those canned responses.
Yep.
Can you modify them for each individual that you're responding to those with?
Yeah, absolutely. When you author an email with a canned response, all it does is you start an email. So I'll start an email here in Compose, go to a canned response, and Michael works with Chromebooks, and he's been responding to a lot of requests for devices that are back ordered right now. So he has a back order canned response. He clicks it, it spits the information into his email, and he can customize it from there. So it just throws in. So another thing that some people do is they'll take canned responses and they'll make building blocks. So you might use more than one. You might throw in one and throw in another one. So you've got 5 or 6 different blocks that you can put in different orders and then add the rest and send it.
Okay, why don't we move to, you've got a follow-up, okay.
On that note, as far as canned responses, is there any way of, like, when I text, it autofills stuff, and I can text a lot faster than I can email because I don't have to type out the whole word curriculum or university or whatever.
Yep.
Is there any feature for that?
I don't believe there is one right now. I think if there was, you might have a percentage of the audience that would be not happy about it, mainly because what that autocomplete on your phone is meant to do, it's meant to help you fill the gap of a very limited data input. Your phone has very little screen space and it's really hard to type on, and so that's why autocomplete is there. When you have a full keyboard, you have a little, I'm actually surprised that you can type faster on your phone than you can type on your keyboard. But for most people, when you have a full keyboard, the computer trying to change to what you're typing would be a negative rather than a positive. So I don't hold out any hope that feature would be added in.
All right, we'll go up here up front.
Is there a version that would run fairly well over a less than optimal connection? Because I know, like, for example, that the iNotes version we use has a light version that would load over my crappy connection.
Yeah, there actually is. If you are on a really poor connection, it'll prompt you. It'll do a little, and it happens pretty rarely now because it's a very optimized application and it can run just like this over pretty slow connections. But if it is really something that's like dial-up slow, a little pop-up will pop up and you can click on it and it will actually load like a really old school text-only interface of this system with blue links and the whole deal.
I will say that going to Chrome does help a lot. So if anybody isn't using it, it really does speed things up,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, if you're a speed freak, Chrome is for you, definitely. Or if you have a really slow connection, Chrome really helps a lot.
All right, up this way, all right.
Is there a way that, like, I take care of my boss's calendar, and if he wants me to accept appointments and stuff for him, that he can delegate those rights to me?
Yes. We usually have a completely separate session if we're training for a deployment, say, for administrative assistants, because anybody with an administrative assistant role is using these tools as an extreme power user. You've got 5, 6 rooms, you've got maybe more than one boss that you have delegated authority to their inbox. You've got multiple different calendars, project calendars, bosses' calendars, all this stuff. And so, yeah, all of that ability is there to delegate the rooms and the ownership and manipulate all of those things. We definitely encourage folks in that scenario to have some extra specialized training so that they can dig really deep into, what's the best practice when I've got a really cluttered amount of stuff to deal with. And then everybody else comes and asks you how to do things because you become the expert.
So we have time for a few more questions up this way, Mike, and then I want to go online and we can run over just a little bit on questions.
What about adding contacts? If you get an email from somebody outside of your normal contacts,
Yep.
how do you add those in? Does it happen automatically? Do you have to add them in manually?
Yeah, so it depends on what format it's sent in. There's certain formats, like I believe vCard is a format that if it's sent in, it'll have a little link underneath it that just says import and you'll pull it in. I can't remember what all the formats are off the top of my head, but if you were to search and say, Gmail contact import, if you were to search that on Google, you could get a list of all the formats that are supported. And further, if it's a situation where it's more than one, it's more than just like an initial, one email with one person's contact information in it, there's a pretty solid ability to take a whole bulk of a CSV or many different formats. As long as you get the columns in the right order, you can upload and import the entire thing. And then there's also a really nice duplicate merge functionality that will take the fields from duplicate contacts that are different. Say you've got one contact with the phone number, one contact with the email. That often happens because you might enter their phone number on your phone and then enter their email on your email client. So that if you run that merge, it's very smart, and it will just create one with both things in it. So that's helpful.
Okay,
We need to go online.
From the email that you receive, can you click on that from name and import it then?
You mean just when you're receiving an email, like not a block of contact information, just receiving the email. So yeah, the system is actually really smart about that. Without any action on your part, it's actually building that stuff for you already. So all you have to do is go into your contacts, and there's a couple of smart groups here. One is most contacted, so it's just watching who you contact the most and making a quick list for you. And then other contacts is the one where you don't have to do anything. It's gonna add it to other contacts. Now, other contacts doesn't show up in autocomplete, so it doesn't clutter up everything. But you can just go in here into other contacts, or you can search, and search will show up other contacts. You can just go in here to other contacts, and I can pick somebody like Aaron Slack, and just click this button, add to my contacts, and everything that the system has grabbed for them, usually it's their email address, but sometimes it'll grab phone number too, will just get automatically added. So.
Okay, Val, let's go to the online question.
The first question is, what is the, when an email is archived, does it count against your space quota?
When an email is archived, does it count against your space quota? The answer to that is yes. The archive button in Gmail, really what it does, it's for folks that like to keep their inbox clear. So if you like to process through your inbox and clear it out, there's a difficulty for you because sometimes you don't want to delete that stuff, right? You still want to be able to search it. It's not that it's garbage and you want it trashed, it's that I'm done with it for now. So that's really what archive is doing. It's not removing it from your storage, it's just removing it from your inbox. But then if you want to search it later, so anybody that's familiar with Getting Things Done or Inbox Zero or any of these kind of productivity frameworks around email, clearing your inbox is usually part of those frameworks. And so archive was really designed as a way to support those sort of productivity frameworks, so you can clear your inbox without deleting them. But yeah, those messages would still be counted against your quota. That being said, it's any average user, it's going to take you 7 to 10 years to fill your quota. So you've got a while before you need to worry about it.
You have another one, Val?
Yes, one more. This is kind of tied into the collaboration component, so I'll let you decide if you want to answer it now or later.
Sure.
Is there an online meeting tool in Google Suite outside the video chat feature?
Well, I guess it depends on what the asker understands the video chat feature to be. The product that's been around for a long time is Google Talk, which was traditionally a one-to-one video chat system. What Google has recently released is called Google Hangouts, and that is a many-to-many video conferencing software that allows you to have that video chat alongside a document, allows you to share your screen alongside that video chat, has a much wider ability, and we're going to show as much of that as we can in the next session about collaboration and mobility.
All right, we're up against the hard break here. I know I didn't get to all the questions and mobile devices. So turn it over here to Dan and go ahead and get started.
Great. All right, thanks a lot for sticking with us, everyone. I know this is a lot to take in, and quite frankly, if you thought that we moved fast and breezed through a lot of stuff in the last session, this one is going to be even worse. There's just so much that the collaboration tools and the mobile tools can do. So it makes it even more important that you guys get your questions down and get them in, and we're going to leave plenty of time for questions because the most important thing is that the things that are critical to you get answered out of this session. So the way I want to start out here is just by putting up on the screen a little URL here, and we're going to do a little exercise. We're going to get a little group participation, hopefully, if we can. So if you can take a moment to copy down this URL. If you have a mobile device, if you have a tablet or a computer or a phone, you can visit this URL, and it's going to take you to a form, and the form is going to ask you a simple question. It's going to ask you who you are, and it's going to ask you what you'd like for lunch. I know it's already past lunch, but this is just an example of that we're going to use later. We're going to gather some information from you guys, and then we're going to show you how it looks in the collaboration tools. So this is an example of one of the pieces of the collaboration tools called Google Forms. And if you guys can fill out that form for me, it will give me some test data that we can look at together later. Great. So what I want to do before we jump into collaboration, we're going to kind of handle collaboration and mobility sort of all together, all in one sort of discussion, and we want to see how they interrelate to each other. How do I collaborate with other people on my team when I'm mobile versus when I have a computer in front of me, on a tablet or on a phone or what have you? So I've got a couple of devices up here that I want to introduce you to, and some of them are familiar and some of them might be new to you. This is a Nexus 7 tablet. It's an Android tablet that's a 7-inch form factor, so smaller tablet. It's kind of similar to the iPad mini in form factor, if that just came out from Apple. We of course have an iPad, which is the full-size tablet format from Apple. I've got up here a Android phone. This is a Samsung Galaxy phone that will open up here and make sure that we can get into this guy. And there we go. And then I also have an iPhone 4 up here. So I want to show you what the experience is like on each of these devices and just give you a kind of a brief overview of it. But it's also important to note that there are many other devices that are supported. Windows phones are supported. Even Blackberries are supported. Google has gone to great lengths to support a wide range of devices, a wide range of client technologies. So, if you want to read your email in Outlook, you can. If you want to read your email in Thunderbird, you can. Even as we look at these technologies, these kind of document collaboration technologies, all of them are compatible with Office as well. So, if you like Office, it doesn't mean that you have to do either or. It means that you can do this one when it makes sense and Office when it makes sense, and it's pretty easy to, for example, receive an email with an Excel spreadsheet in it and open it up in Google's tools rather than opening it up in Office. It's really up to you, it's your choice. So that will all make sense, more sense as we jump into these different collaboration tools. So the first thing I want to do is show you these mobile devices and just get a sense of what they're able to do. So I'm going to start out with, and we'll zoom in here a little bit for you. I'm going to start out with this Android phone. With Android phones, you actually have a pretty integrated experience. You have an operating system, Android, that was designed by Google. And so really all you need to do to get full synchronization of your data from Google Apps, full calendar, contacts, and email, and even docs, is just to sign into the device. So when you get a new Android device, it's going to ask you, what's your username and password? You would give it your Ferris EDU Google Apps account and your password for that, and then everything would be synced. Your email, everything would automatically be synced. So versus iPhone and Apple devices, there's a little bit more setup and configuration. Not much. There's maybe about half a page to a page worth of setup instructions when you're setting up an Apple device. But both synchronize everything. So let's just take a look at the experience. You've already seen the Gmail experience. So there's an app on Android right here for Gmail. And you can see it's pretty much what you'd expect. It's the an email experience, but it's built for this size screen. And it supports the conversation threading that we were talking about. So you see the numbers. If you want to have your conversations threaded, that would be supported. All the stars are supported. Pretty much everything that you might want to have supported. It also supports Android's voice entry abilities, which are pretty cool. If I had time, I would do a couple of voice demos for you so you could see how that works. But anybody that has an Android phone, click the little microphone sometime and say some text into it. You can do some pretty cool stuff, composing your emails. So pretty simple. That email interface is built for Google Apps, and Google's really invested in everything working on mobile. Mobile should be a first-class experience. It shouldn't be, here's a first-class experience on the desktop, and then you get kind of a crummy subset of tools on mobile. Mobile should have everything that the desktop has. And that's kind of Google's philosophy and how they've chosen to build things. So if we look at Calendar, Calendar has a pretty full-featured mobile experience here. You can see all the different calendars that I have in particular turned on. I can go to day view, week view, month view. All of the coloring and everything like that is synced and matches what I've set on my desktop. So it's a pretty seamless mobile experience for the most part there. As you can see, I can turn on calendars off and on, just like I can on the desktop with calendars to display. There's the list of calendars. I can turn off, these right here. I'm not going to really turn them off because this is my brother's phone and he'd have to fix everything when I'm done. So a fairly representative experience on mobile here. Another thing to note is on Android, your Google Talk, your chat features are built into the operating system, as well as your Hangout features are all built in. So all of that is going to work out of the box. On iPhone, some of those features are not built in, so you'd need to install third-party apps, or you'd need to do a couple of extra steps if you want to support those features on your mobile device. And then, of course, the contacts are all completely synced. All your directory contacts would also be synced with your mobile device, so that whether you're calling or emailing, all of those autocompletes are going to work. I'm going to just switch over here to the iPhone device so you can see the experience there. Looks like I've got a bunch of notifications that we'll dismiss. All right, and we'll zoom in just a little bit more, so hopefully you can see that okay. Okay, so here on the iPhone device, there is actually Google has authored a third-party iOS app that you can install that really improves the experience. If they hadn't gone to all the effort of building an app specifically for this experience, you'd be stuck with the Mail app that is built into iOS. You can absolutely use that if you wish. It's standards compliant. You can connect it to a Gmail account. There's no problem. So if you like it better, you can use it. But this Gmail app, which I'll launch here, is really a more consistent experience if you're using the online experience for your desktop. So I'll close that out. So here's my inbox. I just swiped it to update it. It's got that cute little multicolor icon for updating. And you can see it's a pretty similar experience to the Android experience. The single column, stars are supported, the threading is supported, all of those different things are supported. Search, really incredibly powerful. I think having a really powerful search, one thing it's done for me in my own workflow is 5 years ago when I was on Outlook, I had maybe 150 folders because I couldn't rely on search, so I had to folder things in very deep, nested organizational structures. And it got so big and deep that it was easy to lose things in the system that I was trying to use to help me find things. And what I've found is having a really powerful search, especially having it on mobile, reduces my need for all that foldering. So my folders in Gmail now, I've got about 15 folders versus 150. So that's one thing that you don't expect maybe when you start using this environment, but after you use it for a couple months, 6 months, a year, you start to realize, search just kind of makes some of these manual operations that I used to do obsolete. A little bit of an aside. So you can see here in my menu, I've got all my folders accessible. I can manipulate all those. The app is actually compatible with multiple accounts, so if I had a personal Gmail account that I wanted to configure, I could configure it here and add multiple email accounts, Gmail accounts, and switch between them. So quick little overview of the mobile experience. I'll zoom out a bit and we'll take a peek at the iPad. It's really kind of a unique experience to Google that they would invest so much in supporting. Here you can see a little thread that Michael started in the earlier session. He said, "Hi everybody," to a bunch of new minders, and a bunch of new minders responded with cute little messages for Ferris. So we've got a little mouse, and another new minder, I think, later on responds with a kid at a keyboard and some headphones being funny. So there's definitely in our company quite a bit of sense of humor, and they're probably chuckling more with the fact that I have to explain this to all of you than the joy of sending me an email, which is pretty common. So again, really, this is very similar to the iPhone app, except it's optimized for the iPad screen, right? So since we have all this extra real estate on the iPad, we've got the same column of messages, we've got the same threading and stars and all those different functions, but we also have this view pane on the right-hand side. Incidentally, for those of you that are used to that kind of split view in Outlook, or I don't know if Lotus, the current version of Lotus supports that, but that is something that you can turn on in Gmail in the web experience. So if you do like that particular split view, you can go into settings and you can turn that on pretty easily. It's the default of the iPhone app and the threading. So one more look at the cute little mouse. All right. So we'll finally take a look at the Android tablet. All right, and again, very similar. I'm not going to belabor the point, but very similar, optimized for the screen size. You have your folders along the side, you have the different messages, and when you open one up, you have the full threaded view that you can look at. Pretty simple. Okay, as long as I have this Android tablet up here, I want to show you and start to take a look at the Google Hangouts product together, because it's a really powerful product in terms of the ability to work with someone face to face. In just a second, Michael's going to start a Hangout with me, but before he does, an example of how we use this product at NewMind is we have a big screen TV in our office that's dedicated to our remote workers. And it sits in a Hangout all day long. And our remote workers can pop in and out of that Hangout. And the Hangout stays persistent. They just come in and out. And when they're in, it's kind of like they're in the office. They're really sitting in Charleston, South Carolina, or Minneapolis. But we could just walk right up to the TV and start talking to them. And it's the same serendipity as having them right there in the office. So we use this tool literally all day long, nonstop. It's incredibly powerful for us. On Monday, actually, we had one of our remote teammates join us from a train on their mobile device. So they're attending Monday meeting while they rode a train to our client in California, Santa Clara University. We're doing a project there right now. So Michael, why don't you open up a Hangout, and we're going to show you the Hangout experience on mobile. This is built into the Android experience. It's not built into the iPhone, but it can be added if you install the Google Plus app for iPhone. And also, obviously the tablet form factor, same thing with iPad. Installing the app it adds it to iPad. So everything is really is supported in the Apple experience. It just takes a little bit of extra effort to get the right app in place or what have you. All right. Okay, so here we are. It's difficult for me to show you my face. I'll kind of tip it up a little bit. You can see my face. There's Michael. It's actually pretty easy to invite other people. If we had 5 or 6 people standing by, I could invite them, and they would all be added in down here along the bottom. And there's some pretty neat, we've turned audio off because it gives us some pretty bad feedback, but there's some pretty neat audio detection technology that changes the main screen to the person that's talking. So as you have discussion with someone, the bottom screen shows everyone, but then the main screen shows whoever's audio is hitting right now, which is a pretty helpful little feature. So that's the experience on mobile. I've just answered a Hangout request from Michael, and we're hanging out. I'm going to transition now over to my desktop. I'm going to open up the exact same Hangout on the desktop so you can see that experience. And I'm going to go ahead and close it over here. Okay. So you can essentially see, it looks like it's picking up the camera, the device camera, which is pretty cool. So normally this would show my face, this device camera piece right here. But for right now, since I don't have a front-facing camera, it's not showing my face. So there's a bunch of additional things that we can do once we have the additional power of a desktop experience. And it's helpful to imagine 4 or 5 more people. I think the limit right now, what's the limit on the number of people that can hang out at the same time? Is it 20? 15? Okay, yeah. They keep on raising the limit, so it makes it hard for folks like us to keep up. I think it launched at like 8 and then went up to 10 and 12, and now it's at 15. So I'm sure they'll keep raising it. It's really just optimizing the solution so that they can have good video performance over average bandwidth. So you can see there's a lot of different tools right here that we can use to look at things together and to collaborate together. One is screen share. So I could click here and I could pick different pieces. It looks like Windows wants to update, so I could sure share that with Michael, although it would be pretty boring for him. There's a lot of different things I could share. I'm not going to do that because we're doing some video conferencing through this, and I don't want this PC, and I don't want to spoil any of that. But I could share my screen. So if you have a separate app, something that you want to look at together, I could share that, and it would appear instead of my face, and everybody could look at it together. Probably the most common use, other than just using it for meetings and speaking, is to collaborate on a document together. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Google Drive, and this may be, this is going to be a little search interface. So I'm going to open up Google Drive, and let's pretend that Michael and we're going to go back in time to yesterday when we're building the slides that you've seen today. So I'm going to open up these slides, click Select. So now Michael and I are talking face to face, and we have these slides open that are from our initial session. I can get into these slides and I can take a look at content, and I can change that content, I can paste new content, and Michael can as well. And we can both do this in real time while we're talking video to video with each other. It's incredibly powerful, the real-time aspects, and we're going to want to dig into that a little bit more. All of this, like I said, is compatible with Office. So if I want to download this presentation as a PowerPoint, easily done. If I want to email it to someone as an attachment, and make that attachment a PDF or a PowerPoint, easily done. There's just quite a bit of different, just lots of capability and functionality. But the main thing to note is, and you can see here, Michael's making edits right here. He's added the word really in big capital letters. So the main thing to take away from Hangouts is it's really easy to get face-to-face with people and also have the content that you're working on together up there on the same screen. Gonna go ahead and close that out. Great. All right. So let's get back. We've looked at mobile, and I do want to come back to mobile to look at document collaboration. But let's transition a little bit more into document collaboration. We talked about Hangouts, and we sort of segued a little bit by looking at a document inside a Hangout. So let's look at document collaboration. All of that happens in Google Drive, which you launch by using this little icon right up here. I've already launched it, so I'm just going to change to the tab that it's already launched in. So here it is. Here's my Drive. I've got all sorts of different files. They all have little icons here that represent a presentation or a document, or folders look like this. All sorts of different things. You can see that presentation was what we were just editing. Now, again, just like with email, there's this paradigm shift that happens where, because you have really powerful search, because I can say, everything that has been shared to me by Michael, show me all the things Michael shared. Okay, here's all the things Michael owns, documents Michael owns but is shared with me. You can see we're working on a project called Autotask. So show me everything that has Autotask in it, either in the name or in the body of the document. Here's all the Autotask documents. So as you can see, just like with email, my folder structure for organizing, my manual hierarchical folder structure, isn't really as important as it used to be, because I can find anything I want by searching. Now, you can still have folders. If I go to my Drive over here and click the down arrow, all kinds of different folders. What folders, but not 150, 200, 5,000, huge, deeply nested folder structures. What folder structures become useful for, once you have good search capability, is they become useful for sharing. So you can make a collection of documents and share them all with one fell swoop by sharing the folder. So they really become collections that are useful for sharing rather than any kind of an organizational structure. All right. So let's open up this Lunch at FSU document. If anybody remembers, Lunch at FSU was the form that I asked you guys to fill out. And as you can see, this is a spreadsheet document that I can live edit. And in fact, if I look at the sharing settings, it shows that Michael has edit rights as well. So Michael can hop into this document and start live editing it with me. But what's interesting is all of your form entries and test data that you guys have submitted for me has all been automatically entered into this spreadsheet, which is pretty cool. No effort on my part. All I did was send that URL out, so I could easily email the department and make a survey, email the department, send it to them, and all of their responses are going to automatically end up in a spreadsheet. To get a look at how that works, up here under Form, I can go and edit the form. And you can see it's really simple. There's different pieces. There's a title that's completely editable. This particular field, we've made it a text field and required, but I could easily change it to, a list or a checkbox. This one down here, click done on that. This one down here, we've made a multiple choice, and you see it just really simply and easily, gave us a way to enter the choices. Real simple. No programming knowledge necessary. Just it's really like these tools are really a Swiss Army knife. Whereas there's lots of ways to do this, right? There's lots of ways to do a survey. There's lots of ways to do document collaboration and many different things. But having this way that you can do it, that you don't need help from anyone or permission from anyone, you can just just do it. Just make it and implement your ideas. Another interesting thing that this entered data does for us is the spreadsheet actually does a little bit of analysis on the data for us. So if I go to form, show summary, it just takes all my data and does some quick analysis. So it shows me, for example, that soup and salad is by far or actually not by far, not as much as in the first session, is the preferred lunch selection. If this was a 20-question survey, I'd have analysis of each question. It would just build it for me. So this capability can become really powerful. You can see Michael is in the spreadsheet here, as evidenced by his little pink Michael tag, and he's just added this text to the cell. So you can see we're still real-time editing. I can see Michael's here, over here in my sidebar. This functionality can become really powerful, and I don't have time to demonstrate the whole thing, but let me paint you a picture. There is a scripting language that is available, much like VBScript is available for Microsoft Office, that works with these documents. So it's not really difficult to create a form such as this, have it enter data. Let's say, put it in a business setting. Let's say it's department heads entering in budget numbers. So they're filling out the form, they're entering in budget numbers. It's quite easy to have a script that takes action based on that, emails people based on the entries, or does different things. It's fairly easy to build, say, a chart, just like you would in Excel. Build a chart with this data, take that chart and maybe embed it in a website. The beautiful thing is, with this different data and the different ways you've used it, it all remains connected real time. So if you were to make, say, a bar chart with those different department heads' entries in it, you would, Michael's distracting me a little bit with all his little entries here, because some of them are kind of funny. But if you were to make that chart and embed that, and then more people were to make entries into the sheet, into the form, that then go into the database, or the spreadsheet that then the chart is made out of, all of that would continue to work in real time. So if you go to that site that has that chart built into it, you would be able to see the live data with the most recent entries. So as you can see, these different pieces start to stack up to some pretty powerful ways of gathering information. Another great use case, and we'll kind of go back to mobile for this one. Let me just switch off. Uh-oh. And here it is. All right. Let's go back here. Let's say I'm back on my tablet, and I'm going to open up the Google Drive app on my tablet. You can see I've got the Lunch at FSU spreadsheet opened up. I'll zoom in a little bit here so you can see the data. So there's all the data. It's updating in real time, just like my desktop is. So any changes that get made, they're going to show up here the same way. If I make changes here, they'll show up on my desktop. So it's all real time. But let's say I want to author a new document. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to make a new document. And let's call it test. And let's go ahead and share that document with Michael, as well as add some text to it. Let's share first. There he is. I know too many Michaels. So we'll add Michael with edit rights. Great. And now Michael should be able to enter this document and make some edits to it, just like what we were doing on the desktop. You can see I also have that same kind of chat and comment functionality as I had before, and there's Michael live in the document. Zoom in a little bit here so you can see that a little easier. So he's live in the document. So even on mobile, I have live access to the people that are editing the document, edits, everything that they might add. So if we go back here, back to the desktop, open up my drive, there's the test document, open it up. Here's Michael's edits. Okay, so let's take this document and give it a use case that has to do with education, that's instructional. So let's say we have a professor or an instructor that has built a project for a number of different students that I want you guys to build a document together collaboratively. I want you to maybe write a report collaboratively, or maybe a business plan if it's a business class. So we're going to build a collaborative report. Say it's a report on Google Apps for Education, because Michael has started adding that information. So I can start editing at the same time that Michael is. We'll call this Google Apps for Education report. And we'll make the text bigger. We'll make it a heading. And there's just a lot of different stuff that we can add in here. We can add images, and so we'll start building the report, and I'll let Michael continue to build the report as we talk. So as an instructor, as a professor, one of the enhanced abilities that this solution gives you is the ability to give an assignment and then to watch as the assignment progresses. So if you assign this document to someone, let's say your instructions are in the document and they're supposed to write the report within the same document, and you have access to it, you can peek in and see, hey, how is this project progressing? The other interesting thing that you can do is you can go to File, see Revision History, and you can see that the revision history, and this is all just by default, the revision history of all documents gets captured on a minute-by-minute basis. So I can see who made what edits. Like right here, in pink I can see it, 3:18 p.m., Michael made these edits. If I go here, blue is made by me, so it's like we're going back in time here. These are Michael's. You can just keep going back in time until the beginning of the document. So another nice thing that it gives you the opportunity to do is look at that revision history and learn, okay, there's maybe 4 students in this group. Is one person doing all the work? Are only 2 people doing all the work? How is this progressing? And it gives you a little bit further insight into just how folks are progressing within your instructional environment, your projects, the things that you've built. So we are pretty time limited, but I do want to touch briefly on Google Sites. I think you've seen the different types of Google Docs, both documents and spreadsheets and forms, but Sites is really a website building tool, if you will, and I'll show you one example of how we've used it at NewMind. So to open it up, it's again this top menu bar, and there's Sites right here. I'll open it up. Okay, so these sites are basically just little mini websites that can be used. I've seen them used for all kinds of really interesting stuff in educational environments, like a project or a portfolio, and they're really simple to create. So I'll show you an example of one we created to distribute information for a Chromebooks for EDU workshop that we were putting on. So it's really simple. It's just very easily edited via WYSIWYG type editors. What you see is what you get. If I click this edit button here, it's going to load the editor for me. And you can see it's really just as simple as editing a document. I I've got a map here that I've embedded. These are really easy to do. If you go to Insert, you can go ahead and go to Insert Map. You can insert photos, you can insert these different doc types and presentations. If I go back to the view, you'll notice I have a form right here, just like the form that we created, that I created and you guys were filling out at the beginning of the session. This form is basically a sign-up form for participating in this session. And so as we built this site, we just created that form, embedded it in this site, and now the site has the ability to receive input from the user. Also, to tell them where the session's going to be, to tell them who the presenters are, even to give them a little video presentation, kind of priming the pump for what they're going to learn about Chromebooks for education. So this is just an example of what can be done with sites. I've seen really elaborate, multi-page sites where teachers give certain students access to only specific pages. I've seen teachers organize their whole classroom on a single site. We prefer to use them as little tools, a bunch of little tools, but it's a very flexible kind of Swiss Army knife type tool. So hopefully we've given you a quick, broad overview of all these different collaboration tools, how they work in real time, how they work on mobile, just the same way that they work on desktop. And I think we're at a point now where we're running out of time and we should take some questions. Does that sound good, John?
All right, yeah, we have a couple more minutes. And I asked this in the morning session. Can you do the sites, can they be personal websites? If
Absolutely.
I wanted to just, have a picture of me, resume, publications,
Yep.
those type of things.
Yeah, a resume type site or a portfolio type site is a very common use case.
And then could you touch base on publishing, private and public as well?
By default, the sites that you create are going to be private. And then just the same way we were sharing documents, you're going to share and give rights to certain people. Now, sometimes there might be a case like this one where we want this to be accessible by anyone. This was an event for teachers, and so we don't want to have to learn, there's, 50 school districts that we're inviting. We don't want to know every single teacher's name in those school districts. We just want to make this public, out on the public web for anybody to come to and then send everyone the link. So that's something that you go into settings and you have to do very purposefully, and the reason for that is because by default, we want to protect your information. And we want you to make the choice to put it on the web publicly, only when necessary.
And then one more thing on the sites. I think this morning you showed some templates that we didn't
Yes.
see. If you would show those.
Yes,
And
there's.
then we'll move to Q&A.
Yep, there's plenty of templates. If I go to where we would create a site here, you can see there's a gallery of templates. There's even a category for school and education templates. So you can get quite a ways there with a classroom site template or a academic class template. There's just a whole bunch of different templates that you can start from so that you have a nice structure to start plugging in your data. And templates are throughout Google's suite. So there's templates for documents, there's templates for spreadsheets, there's many different templates that you can use to kind of give yourself a head start. You can also create your own. So wouldn't be surprised to see some specialized Ferris templates getting created where you to adopt a system that you could use that had your own branding and things of that nature.
Okay, we're going to move to the question and answer. We're going to go to Grand Rapids first. Just as
campus, we require students for most of our programs to submit portfolios for application to the college. Does this system allow for any type of, not really a Dropbox, but maybe with this site component where prospective or applicants could submit images, digital images, rather than emailing them to us like as attachments?
Well, I think it really depends on the further requirements of the use case. You could certainly make a site that has there's a file cabinet page type in sites. So you could make a public site with a file cabinet that people would upload to the file cabinet. The downside to that would be that since it's a public site, what people are putting in that file cabinet is then public. So I don't think maybe that would fit the bill for your submission criteria per se, because it's really it's a choice whether to make it public or private. It's not really meant as a file transmission mechanism the same way email is meant or FTP is meant, if that makes sense.
Excuse me, you need to
It's
press the
part of
button.
this.
You need to press the button.
Okay, he's pressing the button for me. So couldn't you give those applicants a Gmail account and they could create their own site and give Kendall access to it? Couldn't you do it that way or no?
Absolutely, yeah. Anybody with a personal Gmail account can create a site. So if you wanted to say, hey guys, here's how we make our portfolios, you have to have a Gmail account, you have to create a site and create a portfolio in that site. That would be one way to do it. I don't know that that would be simpler than just sending files to someone if that's the current way that it's done. But if there were, again, as you looked deeper into what are the requirements of that use case, if that seemed to meet the requirements, you could absolutely do that. You could have them build it in sites.
All right, next question, Grand Rapids.
Thank you, that's all we have from Grand Rapids.
All right, well, then we'll start up here, Big Rapids. Do we have questions? We'll start over here on the right. Chris?
Yes, I'm interested in this Hangout thing, how this works. What are the hardware and software requirements on all of those who are participating in the Hangout session?
So this is the coolest thing about Google, is there just really aren't that many. So the software requirements are a web browser, which most people have. If you want people to be able to see you, you have to have a camera. But for people that use laptops, most laptops nowadays are shipping with a camera built in. So more and more and more, most people to have cameras. For mobile devices, you need a microphone and a camera. Most mobile devices have a microphone and camera, that's great. So there really isn't, which is kind of Google's modus operandi, their way of going about things, is there really is very low barrier to entry. There's very low need to install software.
But everybody has to have a Gmail account.
Correct, yeah, Hangouts, the way Hangouts invites people is via a Gmail or a Google Apps account. So there's no way to identify someone without that.
Questions? Okay, go ahead.
Ferris uses an electronic time-off system. Do you have anything that would work with that?
I'll direct that question to John.
We are taking the time off calendar serious as part of our discussion, the replacement. The same question was asked for Merit Mail as well. And if you go out and look at the Google Marketplace, that's a place where applications are developed that are outside of the Google higher education apps. And there are some time management systems out there. We don't know just yet which ones will work for Ferris. And we're also working with the next vendor as well on that question, trying to get that resolved. We know that's an important efficiency for the university employees, so we want to make sure that that's covered in whatever replacement system we choose.
Yeah. So this Google Apps Marketplace that he's talking about is this right here. And it's essentially a marketplace that Google's provided for where people can easily search and find third-party apps that integrate and work really well with Google. And so as these folks do their due diligence, they'll probably be looking at the different third-party apps that are available to replace the functionality that you guys have today. And that's helpful on an individual basis too sometimes. If you're heavy tasks user, say, and Google's task functionality doesn't quite give you all the functionality that you want, you could install a third-party app from the marketplace. A surprising number of them are free. There's also, Chrome also has a Chrome App Store, which does very similar things, lets you search apps and include them in Chrome. So you can augment these functionalities with additional things.
Okay, to the back, Gary.
Hello, I'm interested to know whether you have any mobile device management packages. For instance, device is lost, stolen. We need to get that university confidential information off there.
Yep.
And make it disabled enough so it cannot be used again.
Yep, great question. So Google actually has mobile device management, a certain level of it built into the user management system. So we didn't have enough time to cover this because it's more of an administrative feature, but creating user accounts and administrating user accounts and changing people's passwords is all done through a simple web-based interface that your IT department will have access to. And there's mobile device management features within that interface, such as policy management, device wipe, a bunch of different features. Now, we do find some people evaluating those features and finding one or two that they really need that aren't a part of the current package. Google's adding to that feature set on a pretty rapid basis, but it's not to say that we don't see some clients also implementing something like Iron Port or something that just gets them those couple of extra features that they really feel like they need. So there's a lot built in, but you know, that's not to say that you might augment it with something.
All right, any other questions on this side of the room?
Hey, John, I'd like to follow up with that. Is there a possibility to test some of those features or that app before we make a decision? Because this could be a pretty important part of mobile device management as we are moving toward those quite rapidly here at the university.
So I'll take that question. What our first goal is to narrow the field down to 1 or 2 vendors, and then we can take a deeper dive into those features and which ones are important to the university. And so we'll probably investigate things a little deeper at that point.
Yep. Google has a lot of that kind of administrative functionality baked in, which usually requires an add-on functionality. If there's any other IT folks in the room, another example is two-factor authentication. If you want to augment your security and add two-factor auth, that's baked into Google as well if you want to turn it on, which is another differentiating factor. Google tends to bake in a lot of stuff that other vendors can really want you to buy elsewhere.
Okay. Jennifer.
Okay. Well, here you're at the apps. I had a question about customizing your experience per user. So is it true that I could build my Google experience to be completely different than somebody else's?
There is a really high degree of customization that's available. Sometimes the sort of customization you want isn't available. Some people are very, very visual, and so a couple pixels here and there or alignment of different things matters a lot. There's not a lot of customization of those sorts of things, but things like your inbox, say, there's a lot of themes for your inbox. There's a lot of ways to move your chat. Like if you noticed in Michael's box, the chat was over to the left side. In mine, it's over here. And where it becomes very functional, that's where there's a lot of customization. So another example is how you see your inbox is very customizable. I show important and unread at the top, and then starred, and then everything else. But you could say, at the top, I want the contents of this particular folder, and then the second folder, and then everything else. So that type of stuff is incredibly customizable. So it really depends on what you're looking for from a customization standpoint. The visual stuff is a little bit weaker than the functional stuff in terms of what you can customize.
I was thinking of if there was an app I knew that I wanted to add on to my experience. I could do that?
Yeah, there's definitely ways that you can add on apps to your experience without bothering the rest of the domain. It really depends on the app. Some apps are easy to add on to your experience only. Some apps, like apps that integrate deeply with certain other systems, really can only be, can only be integrated with the assistance of your IT team and integrated for everyone. So it really just depends on the app.
Okay. Next question.
The Google Drive and the sites, you gave us a URL to go fill out that form, but anybody could have came across that URL and filled it out, and you could have had hundreds of responses, or as I did, I filled it out 3 times, so I voted on different things.
Yep.
Is there a way that you can make that private or send it just to a group of people? And then-
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
then is there a way of getting the, like, if you were voting on a proposal, say, if you were providing that, it would be approved or not approved, or, you know, that kind of thing? You could get the total number.
Yeah, so that kind of speaks back to what I was talking about using these products in conjunction with each other and creating that kind of logical chain of value that you can create. So in terms of the approval piece, that would be something that you would need to script, and we've seen it scripted. Google Apps Script is the scripting language. It's based on JavaScript, so if anybody, you don't have to be a real hardcore programmer to write some JavaScript. If you have some, or if your department has some ability, it's something you can write really quick. But I've definitely seen plenty of clients, and we've helped people do an approval step where it actually, the form gets submitted, and it emails the data that came in the form to someone for approval, and right in the email gives them 2 buttons that says approve, deny, and then it talks back to the spreadsheet and either marks that row as approved or denied, and then only approved rows get included in the chart or in the dashboard that you create. So that it requires a little bit of extra work, but it's very doable. And once you've done it once, you get to use it over and over and over. Does that make sense? Did I answer the whole question? It seemed like it was a 2-parter, and maybe I missed part of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other part was, basically, you got 100% response on yours because you didn't have a field.
Right.
So, like, if we sent something out to 30 students and only 2 people, you know, responded with,
Yep.
say, a survey, your graphs and stuff only would graph those 2 and not all the stuff that wasn't.
Right, yeah, the built-in graphs don't measure against expected response. They just measure against, tell me what the respondents said, essentially. The other part I remember, though, was was the security piece. And yes, you can, I didn't do it because it would have made it inaccessible to you guys, but you can set a flag that says you have to have a Ferris login to fill this out, and you can also set a flag that says we're going to record your login so that you can't fill it out multiple times.
Okay, additional questions? Let's go back here, go ahead.
Does Google play well with Blackboard? Because I personally don't like the email in Blackboard, and I'm wondering if there's a way that could happen in Blackboard and out here too or something.
Yeah, I'm not very good at speaking to individual third-party softwares because I don't know everything about everything in terms of third-party software, but I will say we see lots of third-party software get integrated with Google as long as the third-party software supports open standards. Like for email, that would be IMAP and POP and things of that nature. So as long as that software supports open standards, there are ways of forwarding that email into Google, sending from Google as that email address, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, any more questions in the back? Okay, Jennifer, another question.
Yes, so this product would be for faculty and staff. The student Gmail is separate. What you were just saying was you could flag it so that anyone with a Google login could fill out the form. Would it be an @ferris.edu, or is it only people within this? I'm getting towards student integration with the student email system.
Right. So it's really a decision on with regard to your IT staff and your leadership, how you namespace your systems. It's not uncommon to see students and faculty sharing the same system, albeit with lots of security settings that segregate student data from faculty data. So some of the benefits of that are searching and finding the emails of students becomes very easy. Whereas if you separated the namespaces, they wouldn't show up in your searches. Also, if you separate the namespaces, then sharing documents between them becomes an external share rather than an internal share. So that's really just a decision for your leadership. You can do it either way, and there's pluses and minuses and benefits and negatives to each way.
Okay, we have time for a few more questions. Lori?
This is back to groups in the email application.
Yep.
Is there a limit to the size of the group that can be created for email?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I want to say there's not, because I think if they had published a limit, then I would know about it. But I don't think I've heard that question. That's something that we could certainly look up and pass on to John. And it's also something, because this is a Google product, Google searches for information about it work pretty well. So if you were to search something like Gmail group maximum recipients, something like that, there are some limits that Google puts in place on the number of senders or the number of recipients that you can send to in a given day from a single account. And that's to keep people from creating Gmail accounts and spamming out of them. So I'm pretty sure, what's the limit, Michael? I think it's 1,000 individual recipients a day. Yeah, so you'd have to be emailing a lot of emails. And it's not 1,000 emails, it's 1,000 discrete, different recipients. That's how they measure it. So if you are sending a lot of email every day, I would recommend something like Constant Contact or MailChimp or something like that that's built for the purpose of sending lots of mass emails.
And in the Google Apps for Education client, there is no limit to the number of users a group can have?
No, just looked it up.
Just a follow-up question to that. We have some mass communication processes that we like to do.
Yep.
And it's more than 1,000
Yep.
people in the 2 field or the blind CC field. We do that for emergency communications,
Yep.
as well as university-wide notices. How would you do something like that in Google?
In order to stay compliant with mass mailing laws that you have to stay compliant with, we always recommend that sort of mass communication would be done out of a system that's built for the purpose rather than out of an individual mailbox. Now that being said, internal recipients are different than external recipients. So if you're talking about internal, you would create a group that is all users or everyone at the university, and you would send a mail to that group. And that group would not stop at 1,000. Those internal recipients are exempt from those spam laws, essentially, because they're your own users. Those limits apply to if you're sending outbound to lots of people, which would fall under those laws that you have to be careful about. So MailChimp, Constant Contact, there's a whole a whole bunch of different products that are built to help you comply with those laws. They have unsubscribed footers, and they clearly identify mail as what it is, etc.
Any additional questions? All right, I'd like to close by saying thank you again for the time that you've set aside to help us with making this decision. Thank you down in Grand Rapids for your help, Krista, everyone down there. On the handout, there is an HTML at the bottom. You can go there and learn all about the project, the timeline, the things that we're doing, and most importantly for today's sessions is to fill out the feedback survey. We really need your feedback on what you think about Google Apps for Higher Education and all of the other cloud providers we're looking at. Thank you again.
Thanks for having us, guys. You've been great hosts, great questions, really great.